What's going on, No Horsing Around family? Back at it again. We're talking about rivalry week, Jaguars. So we had to go out there and get someone who, I'm sure, Dalton, I'm sure you are fired up right now after the big win that you had against the Bills. Some good stuff to talk about this week. Just wanted to get your instant reaction and how you felt about how the team played against the Bills. And I mean, 9-6, right?
Yeah, 9-6. With the game, with the way the NFL goes, I was looking at the way the Jets play when it comes to kind of getting blown out by Atlanta and the following week beating the Bengals, then the week after that, kind of going down to the Patriots in the manner that they did. And I kind of looked at it and said, look, like any given Sunday, any team can kind of win. But the surprising thing is the fact that the defense only allowed 6 points against like the number one scoring offense in football in the NFL. That shocked me. I saw things that I didn't think our defense was capable of doing. A lot of guys took their play to a whole nother level, including the Jaguars version of Josh Allen. And it was an incredible game, and the Jaguars were able to pull off the biggest upset in franchise history when it comes to Vegas spread.
Yeah, man. I mean, it's just incredible. I don't think that I'll say this: the Jaguars bust me last week with the parlay. So, man, I was a little bit bummed by that. But hey, you'll have that. That's life. What do you think attributed to that win? I mean, you mentioned the defense earlier, but do you think that at this point in the season, do you feel like the Jags are starting to kind of turn for the better, or was it just an outlier game?
I think a couple things happen when it comes to the secondary. The Jaguars have a number 33 overall pick in Tyson Campbell, who had been struggling a little bit and just trying to kind of find his footing in the NFL. And he actually had by far his best game last Sunday. And they also switched out our nickel cornerback, and they played a guy by the name of Rudy Ford, who has been in the NFL for a little bit, but he's more of a special teamser. But he's extremely fast, and he really had a big impact at the nickel spot, especially when it comes to closing speed, when it comes to, tackling the ball carrier kind of behind the first down marker. So that was a big thing. And also just ramping up pressure. The Jaguars were finally able to get some pressure on the quarterback, and that led to errant throws. And, before the Bills game, the Jaguars only had 2 interceptions, and that Bills game, the Jaguars got 2 interceptions. And to add on to that, they also had a fumble recovery where they stripped Josh Allen of the ball. So it was the defense was flying all over the place. And that was the main thing that seemed like the Jaguars really did different defensively, and just, not allowing any big plays, obviously, because they didn't allow a touchdown.
Yeah, I mean, it's really just an incredible performance, really, when you look at it. I mean, the best defensive performance of the season for them, and maybe hell against anybody who's went against Josh Allen. You mentioned the other Josh Allen. He had an incredible game last week. Interested, before we get kicked off on injury report and kind of talking about game specifics, are you on the camp where you love Urban? Or are you on the camp where you're like, not so much on Urban? I'm very interested to know this because I've talked to several Jaguars fans, and it really feels 50-50 to me.
Yeah, I'm on the wait and see kind of train. I'm someone, a lot of people are like, oh, we need to fire him right now, but it's like, what does that really do? And last week I was kind of out on him. I was like, okay, like let him finish the season out and kind of move on and find our next guy. And I was like, looking at Brian Dable as the number one option. And then I look and I was like, our defense coordinator massively outcoached Brian Dable. And honestly, NFL coaches, there's no sure thing out there. There's no right answer unless, like, you get lucky and kind of get an Andy Reid situation where, his time was just out in Philadelphia and he just went over to KC and had a seamless transition. So really with Urban Meyer, I just want to see how he finishes it out. I know after the bye week, they had 9 games left. And I was like, I want to see if he finds a way to go 4-5 or 5-4, kind of around that 500 range. And right now he's 1-1, and who knows, man? Last game the team just rallied around him. They didn't give up, and he had a really good, coaching game in there. And obviously they upset the Bills. That's when it comes to you're coming into that game and you're being severely outmatched when it comes to talent level. And, he deserves a lot of credit for going out there and doing that. And, NFL, it's been a little bit of a transition for him, but hey, man, like sometimes it takes a little bit. And if he can turn us around and we, win some quality games, I'd definitely be on board with keeping him around.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I'm probably wait and see. My co-host Steven thought that he made a prediction that Urban wouldn't even make it the full season just because he hates losing so much, you know.
Yeah.
But that being said, we'll see how it goes. We'll get into injury reports. How's your team looking as far as the injury report goes at this point of the week?
The injury is looking pretty good. I mean, the Jaguars are getting back James Robinson after he missed last week. He was a game time decision, and just like I guess right before they had to put out the inactive list, they said, okay, he's not going to be able to go. So he should be a full go this upcoming Sunday. And our left tackle Cam Robinson had a setback in pregame warmups, and he was actually out that game. We had a rookie starting a left tackle, but Cam Robinson should be back. Miles Jack was a little bit limited in practice, but it doesn't seem like there's going to be any significant injuries to where guys are going to be held out. And another guy that's kind of limited right now is Trevor Lawrence. We had a huge scare. We thought that he at the last game he actually had to leave the game and go to the locker room and get X-rayed because he got his ankle stepped on. And man, it looked bad. I mean, it looked like he broke his ankle, and obviously he couldn't put any weight on it. So we were sitting here just thinking the worst as CJ Beathard went in the game, but he came back, and he's just been a little bit limited. But you know how they do in the NFL, they're going to inject some stuff in him, and he's going to be good to go. So and when it comes to injuries, it seems like we're pretty squared away.
Good, man. As far as the Colts guys go, we've got an update today. T.Y. Hilton still in concussion protocol, seems to be getting better. We did elevate T.J. Carey. You'll find out this week, Dalton, that we have about the worst defensive backfield that you'll ever. I mean, if you want to talk about Trevor Lawrence having a field day, we play a soft zone. We need our defensive backs to come back. T.J. Carey would be a great addition. All in all, though, we're pretty healthy. We sit out our normal veterans, Darius Leonard, Quentin Nelson, rest day, limited practice. Braden Smith's a guy to keep an eye out on the right side. He's dealing with a little bit of a tricep arm, injury. Other than that, we're pretty good, and seems like we're good to go for this matchup. Want to go in on offense first. How do you feel about your team's offense? You mentioned Trevor Lawrence earlier. But just kind of walk me through the offense of the Jaguars. How do you feel about at this stage of the season? I guess we're going into it would be week 10. How do you feel about the progression of Trevor Lawrence and just the offense in general?
Yeah, I mean, when it comes to the offense, the last two games, the Jaguars have not scored a legitimate touchdown. Obviously, the Bills game, they didn't score a touchdown, and in the Seattle game, they scored a touchdown within 2 minutes in garbage time when they were getting blown out. So they haven't scored a legitimate touchdown since London before the bye week. And really, this offense runs around James Robinson. I mean, it's a different offense when James Robinson is in there versus when he's not in there. So it's looking like he's going to be back healthy, which is obviously huge for us. And the passing game has been a little bit tough, man. And it's not an indictment on Trevor Lawrence. It's more so a thing where just there's not many great playmakers out here. I mean, the leading ball catchers right now is Jamal Agnew, who was cornerback 2 years ago. He's a special teamser that kind of switched over to wide receiver, and tight end Dan Arnold, who was acquired mid-season after a CJ Henderson trade. And DJ Chark out for the year with an injury. And then, we have guys like Laviska Shenault, who's been a huge disappointment, and Marvin Jones, who's, he's dependable. He's reliable, Marvin Jones, but, he's a 30-year-old wide receiver on his third team. So really this passing game, it's like you can look around on different teams and usually spot 2 or 3 wide receivers that are better than any wide receiver that we have. And, that's including the Colts, man. You guys, have a lot better receiver core than us. And it's not even like you guys were, all that elite at that position. It's just kind of the state of the Jaguars right now when it comes to that. So, there are times where, Trevor Lawrence might miss a guy. And there's also times where Trevor Lawrence, makes a great play and puts the ball in a hard window and the guy just drops it. And it's just, there's not a whole lot of synergy when it comes to just the passing game in general. But, this year's all about Trevor Lawrence. It's all about his regression. I mean, he's, I think, shown a lot of good stuff. I mean, he hasn't had the kind of flashy Justin Herbert type of numbers, but, I'm no less sold on him than, the day the Jets beat the Rams and the Jaguars locked him up than I am now, because it looks like he's going to be a really good talent, especially once he tightens his mechanics up, once he kind of really hones in on the offense, and once we actually get him some playmakers, I think he's going to be really good.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned Trevor Lawrence. Are they good? You think next year, as far as looking forward to the draft, you think that they're going to go out there and they're really going to target a lot of playmakers for him? Because it just seems like he doesn't have that one guy right now that he really trusts. I don't know about you mentioned DJ Chark being out for the rest of the season. Was that his guy before he got hurt? And do you feel like they're going to go out there and they just haven't found their guy yet?
Yeah, I mean, he didn't really. I mean, his guy early on was Marvin Jones, but now it's like it's more so like he's leaning toward Dan Arnold and Jamal Agnew, like I said, like as of late. But yeah, I mean, when it comes to this offseason, I imagine they're going to go after a receiver in free agency and a draft. Like, you look at guys. I don't think Devontae Adams is going to the Packers going to let him go. And who knows about if Al Robinson would come back. But I'm kind of more so looking at Chris Godwin. I don't know if the Patriots are going to have the money to kind of keep him with kind of all the money they have going around there. And he's a young guy. He's going to chase the money, and imagine the Jags will throw the bag at him. But then as well as the draft, I mean, having one great receiver isn't enough. And, the Jaguars they don't have playmakers at that. I mean, I think we did a good job of getting, kind of shoring up the tight end position. But yeah, I mean, a young quarterback, they need their playmakers. And, you kind of saw that with, your guys with Andrew Luck and Peyton Manning. They had their go-to number one receivers, and that you need to complement a franchise quarterback with somebody like that.
Yeah, 100%. I couldn't agree more. As far as our offense flipping over, Michael Pittman Jr. sneakily having a really good season. He's starting to creep up every single week. I believe he's just about top 10 in every single category for wide receiver as far as yards. Touchdowns are at 5. Pretty good. Not great, but pretty good. He's a volume guy. He's doing really, really well. And then Jonathan Taylor, he's our bell cow. He will take the ball. And I think the special thing about Jonathan Taylor is, for me, and I'm interested to get your take on the Colts offense in general, is he's one of those running backs that can take the ball 80 yards for a touchdown. Not every running back can run off and leave, the defense, but he's a pretty special running back. So I guess our offense starts and stops with Jonathan Taylor and Michael Pittman Jr.
Yeah, it's I mean, Jonathan Taylor's been really good, and obviously, the Jaguars and Colts have 2 second-year running backs, and the thing that James Robinson is a great running back and everything, but he went undrafted, and the main reason because of that is the fact that he doesn't have that breakaway speed, the kind of breakaway speed that Jonathan Taylor has. But yeah, that's what I mean. I'll be honest with you, I'm more worried about the Colts than I was the Bills. I actually think the Colts, now their offensive line is back and healthy, and now they're kind of hitting their stride. They could turn into a pretty dangerous team. And you look at the Bills, and the Bills, they're going to be in trouble because they don't have a run game, man. Like, they're relying on Josh Allen to kind of be their lead runner. And, it's a dangerous game if you're going to sit here week in, week out and solely rely on your pass game. I mean, it's dangerous, man. You can fall into games like they did against the Jaguars where, the pass game just isn't clicking. You don't have a run game to fall back on, and then you lose games you're not supposed to lose. So, yeah, it's gonna be a fun matchup, I think, with the Colts and the Jaguars. And I think the Colts, they can't mess around anymore, man. They got to start winning some games if they want to. Especially, I mean, it looks like the Titans are probably running away with the AFC South. So try to sneak in and get that wild card spot. I mean, they used their mulligans early in the season, so they need to flip the switch here.
100%, man. I mean, we're just like, and you mentioned it. I mean, if we lose this game this weekend, and I told, people back a couple of weeks ago, this is the game that scares me the most, honestly, like, at this part of the season, just because there's no pressure on the Jags right now. Like, they can just go out and play football. They don't have to worry about, playoffs and all of this stuff. I mean, they're just trying to, build that right culture, get back in the right mindset, see what Urban Meyer's got there. And then you talked about the progression with Trevor Lawrence as the season goes on. But I hope we have a tendency to overlook teams, and I hope that doesn't happen this week, because if it does, honest to goodness, I'll be there at that game. And if Trevor Lawrence gets hot, as quarterbacks tend to do against our zone, you'll notice our safeties and our defensive backs, as we transition to defense, they're limited, man. They're struggling to cover right now. We're playing with just kind of a skeleton crew, a lot of journeymen back there. We will usually start with our veterans, but they always seem to get hurt inside the game, which is kind of just a head scratcher for me that we just can't get healthy
Yeah.
when it comes down to it. So defensively, I'm more curious to hear about the Jaguars. I mean, obviously Josh Allen, he's a beast. But what do you got on defense? What do you like? What do you not like?
Yeah, I mean, with the defense, I mean, geez. I mean, when you let up 6 points, it's hard to find any kind of weakness about what happened that week. But man, the week prior, it was like, I mean, Seahawks and Geno Smith was able to do anything they wanted to us. I mean, he was just carving us apart. And, I think it's just a thing where, the defensive backs are playing a lot more disciplined. The linebackers this last game, it's just completely night and day, man. Just what happened. So I don't know. I guess I would still be a little bit worried about the defensive backfield, especially with a guy like Tyson Campbell, our rookie, who seemed like he flipped the switch a little bit last game, which is, good to see. Hopefully he can continue to progress. And, just throughout the season, I was worried about our pass rush. I mean, outside of Josh Allen, we haven't really had a consistent guy getting to the pass rush or getting to the quarterback. Obviously that changed last game, but just they've been allowing way too much time given to the quarterbacks, and we don't have the defensive backs to kind of cover that. So, it's led to some bad things, but, hopefully, we can keep this momentum going. Hopefully they found what they do good. And, really with Carson Wentz, we have to force him to play hero ball, because we know that, I think, one of Carson Wentz's biggest flaws is that he wants to make the big play. And, man, that last game against the Titans, man, he threw that one away in the most, horrible time. So Jaguars hopefully had to force him to do, something similar this game. And, I think it all starts with like just getting some pass rush on him.
Absolutely, man. So defensively, Darius Leonard so far has just been a turnover magnet for us. I mean, he has been injured though this year. He's not quite the same player that he has been in the past as far as sideline to sideline. He struggles with being able to cover it as well. We have no pass rush as of the moment. We get all of our pass rush from the inside. DeForest Buckner, Grover Stewart, Taylor Stallworth will play pretty well sometimes. But so far, we got a couple rookies on the outside. Kwity Paye doesn't have a sack. We've got like a veteran journeyman, Al-Qadim Muhammad. He's been consistent in the run game, but he's not much on the pass rush. It's been a little bit frustrating for us, honestly, Dalton, on the defensive side. We've struggled to keep our get that defense on third down. I mean, you'll notice in this game, 3rd and 6, 3rd and 7, 3rd and 8, 3rd and 5, we really struggle to get off the field in those situations. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. I know you've got another show coming up later, but I was curious before you get off here. What do you think the game plan should be and is going to be, Jaguars versus Colts? What do you think they should do, and what do you think they should kind of hit on to come out with this dub this weekend?
Well, one of the best things about this Jaguar defense, just, really even just going into the Buffalo game, is that they've been really good at stopping the run. I mean, I think they're top 5 in the NFL when it comes to lowest yards per carry when it comes to the opposing running back. And, the Colts, they're going to want to run. I mean, they are going to want to pound the rock. And, if they have to, if they're able to run every single play, they're going to want to do that. And Jonathan Taylor's obviously hitting a great stride, and you also have Naheem Hines as well. So, it's a pretty 1-2 punch, and it's a pretty dynamic 1-2 punch where each guy is, very different, but very, great traits when it comes to complementing that offense. So have to be able to stop the run and then, kind of force the Colts into 3rd and long situations and force, Carson Wentz to hopefully make some bad decisions. He's one thing we know about him, he's got a really good arm and he can, throw a heck of a ball, that's for sure. But, kind of force him into making errant throws is, similar to what the Jaguars do with Josh Allen, just force bad throws and, kind of take them over that way. And then, just when it comes to offensively, man, I mean, we know what the Jaguars offense does well. I mean, it was proven when James Robinson was not with us, the Jaguars were not able to score touchdowns. You know what I mean? So the offense runs through James Robinson. So the Jaguars had to get the run game going somehow. Then, I mean, one of our wide receivers has to step up. And we have some recycled guys. We have like Laquan Treadwell and like Taven Austin. Guys like that are getting significant playing time. And someone just has to step up. I mean, it's an open competition at who wants to be the best receiver. And, they're kind of giving it to each other. So But one thing that Trevor Lawrence has been doing really well, he's been just protecting the ball really well, hasn't been throwing a bunch of interceptions, but at the same time, the pass game just hasn't been, great. So that's one thing that I kind of want to see out of the Jaguars, is to be able to stop the run and be able to run well as well.
Absolutely. So as far as the Colts go game plan wise, I think it's pretty simple on defense. You mentioned earlier, you got to stop James Robinson. He really helps that team go. And then I think you got to make Trevor Lawrence just be uncomfortable. Don't let him get comfortable in his progressions. He is the #1 draft pick for a reason. When he starts getting comfortable, he starts getting into the rhythm, he starts getting hot, he can light you up, man. I mean, I don't overlook him at all. He's going to be in the AFC South for a very, very long time, so we better get used to it as far as that goes. And he has the ability to move, right? Like he's not just a statue back there. And then on the offensive side, I think we're going to be committed to the run. I know you guys are pretty good against the run, but I just don't want Frank to just abandon the run if it's not working out first quarter, second quarter, because a lot of times Jonathan Taylor, as the game goes on, he gets a little bit better. And then secondly, I think we should use our tight ends pretty well this week, and as well as Michael Pittman Jr. But we got to find that next receiver. Who's going to play beside Michael Pittman Jr. to, help Carson Wentz out? You mentioned earlier he plays hero ball sometimes. He loves going down the field, almost to a fault at moments. But other than that Tennessee game, he's honestly been pretty good. He's only thrown 3 takeaways. And that was just a horrible, timely interception that he threw. And then we've got to have a real specific game plan to block Josh Allen. Like he's, around here, there's a guy named Rick Venturi. We all, Colts fans, all follow him. Josh Allen's what he would call an ambient guy. He's a guy who keeps you up at night. Like, how are you going to game plan for that guy and his talent? So should be a good one. Let's get a prediction, man, before you hop off here. We always ask our guests when they come on, let's get a prediction of the game and how you feeling?
Yeah, I mean, I'm nervous about this one, man. I don't know if the Jaguars are going to have the dogs when it comes to just being able to stop the run. Like, I don't know, just the offensive line of the Colts is so good. And the Jaguars historically, they don't play as well in Indianapolis, and they play a lot better at home. So, I guess with this one, the Jaguars fall back to earth, and I predict the Jaguars lose 27-17.
Okay. I'm going to go 23-17 Colts. I think we drive the ball decent, but I do think that defense is getting better for the Jaguars. I think they have the ability to stop us from converting all of those good drives into touchdowns. Should be a good one, man. Before you get off here, let everybody know where they can find you. I know you've got a pretty good YouTube thing going right now. You seem to be pretty good in the Jaguars community. Let everybody know where they can find you.
Yeah, man, I'm just on YouTube, UCF Jaguar, pretty simple there. Then also on Twitter and Instagram, same handles. It's at UCF_Jaguar. So I'm pretty active on all the different platforms, and always down to talk with whether it be Jaguar fans or other AFC South rivals.
Absolutely, man. Hey, well, thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule. I don't want to keep you because I know you've got some stuff coming up here in the middle of the hour. But thanks again, man, for coming on. I'll end the podcast like I always do. I love you. Dalton loves you, and we're out.